Hey YouTube friends, this is Seth the Throttle Addiction. We are going to show you how to rewire your Sportster Chopper. If you haven't seen, this is the one we did the 12-hour hardtail build on. Been getting a lot of questions, a lot of comments, people asking about wiring, what the next step is. They get this far, how to clean things up, go through everything wiring wise. So today we got it all stripped down, nothing there wire wise. We're going to go through what you keep, what you get rid of, some things that we sell on the website that'll help you clean it up to get it as bare bones as possible. Our hardtail fits 86 to 03. Obviously, as far as electrical goes, there's a bunch of things that evolved and changed between those years. What we're going to do for the sake of this video, we're not going to tell you the different nuances. We're not going to make it for one or the other. We're basically going to start with nothing, show you what you can use for anything across the board to get it up and going. Here's the pile of parts and pieces, all the wiring that we pulled off this thing. When we tore it down, getting ready to hardtail it. As you can see, we got about 700 miles of wire. Your Vos, we got thises, we got that's, we got handlebar switches, all sorts of circuit breakers, relays, what have you. We are gonna eliminate all of this. This stuff we're throwing on the sell it on eBay pile. Pretty much the only thing we are reusing on the bike is the voltage regulator as well as the stator, which is on the bike. The hardtail kit has a pretty small battery box, so we sell these anti-gravity batteries. We're going to be using one of those. We got these really handy little wiring harness, pretty simple, going from this to this. I'll walk you through kind of what this is, what each wire is. This is something we'll be selling on the website here once we get a few of them built up. Ignition switch. So normally you got your run, you got your off, and then you have a push button start on the handlebars. We're doing away with that for that clean look. So this is a 3-position switch. We got off, we got on, and then a start position. So this, turning this just like in your car, will actually start the bike. So we're using that to clean things up. Other thing we are using, this is our brake light switch. We will be throwing that guy on. Battery. Here on the bike, there's still a couple things on here electrically. We're going to talk about those. First of all is your stator, which is inside your primary cover on the other side. This is part of your charging system. This 2-pin wire here comes out over there, runs through here, plugs into our regulator rectifier. This guy is staying. This gentleman here is your speed sensor. We are not running a speedometer, so we are going to get rid of that guy. You can also just clip this, leave it here. We sell this fancy little plug for that hole, so we're just going to install that to clean up one more part of this. Pops right out, leaving a big ugly hole. This little guy, it's got an O-ring on there, comes with our bolt. Just gonna pop that down in there. One less thing on, one more thing to go to the swap pile. This guy sticking out here plugs in up there. That is our neutral light. We are not going to be utilizing that, so we are going to pop that out of there. This is either your timer pickup on the earlier models or your integrated timing plate. So for the sake of this video, again, we're going to take this all apart. We're going to get rid of that for the sake of installing that Ultima Ignition. That way, if you have that earlier model like we talked about, you want to get rid of your ignition control module, that big chunky box you got to find a home for. Cleans it up, hides it all behind here. Short of this guy, we'll be pulling this off shortly, but this guy is our only wire left on this entire bike. We're going to take you to school here. We got our little whiteboard. Before we actually wire anything up, we're kind of going to talk about it, draw it on our little pictures here. Got most things labeled. This is our starter motor outlined in polka dots. That means that's OEM staying there. We got our new battery. 4010 is our SKU. We're gonna have a 30 amp circuit breaker in there, taillight with our brake light, headlight, that 4026 Ultima Ignition module, which comes with the coil, that 3-position key switch with the start, 3064 is the SKU on that guy, regulator, rectifier, and our stator. This is all OEM stuff as well, and really ugly spark plugs. So the first thing we're gonna be doing here, we got our stator with those 2-wire connectors. We're gonna be connecting those guys. And then our regulator rectifier's got a wire with a little connector coming off of it. For the sake of this, we're gonna cut that on. This should be the only connection you really have to make if you're using our harness. We are going to run that guy over to our 30 amp circuit breaker. We're gonna do that, as well as we are going to get our battery installed. We are going to run our positive battery cable to our starter. We're gonna throw our battery in here with our battery tie down. This one's kind of ugly, not all powder coated yet. Got our 30 amp circuit breaker, again, a little ugly. The kit, when we get all those put together, will come with this circuit breaker holder. It's a little spring-loaded guy, as well as this 30 amp circuit breaker. That battery tie down comes in the hardtail kit, as well as the tie down bolt. Finger tighten that guy for now. We are going to install our battery cable, which is going from our positive to our battery down to the starter terminal itself. So your OEM battery cable's not quite the right length. This one here we sell on the website, throttleaddiction.com, just for this Sportster hardtail kit. And this cable has a bigger end and a littler end. So this will only go on one way. This is much easier before the oil tank and all the goodies are on. This will all sit nicely inside of our oil tank once we get that installed. The other thing is our jumper wire. And this is just going to go from our terminal to one side of our circuit breaker. Circuit breaker is essentially our fuse for the entire bike here. I recommend doing this with your ground lug off, not hooked up. That way you don't have to worry quite so much about arcing anything out. Power to our starter, as well as power to the one side of our circuit breaker. Regulator, this is just a stock one right off it. We kept our original mounts up here in the front of the bike. The frame's got a little indent on this side, so when you put this in, you want your wires facing the left of the bike there. Fit right inside that little indent. So way back buried in there are our stator wires coming from inside the primary from our stator. When we kind of undid all the electrical, obviously we didn't do anything with those. They snake down and come out right here. So we're just gonna kind of leave them up on the inside of the case here. Follow along on the top side of the frame rail and make this connection. Again, 2 prongs, does not matter which way that goes. So when we're all done here, we'll come back and tie all this stuff up nicely to the frame. But that's our first connection to our regulator. Our second guy is right there, which is the return to power. So what we're gonna do is hike back over here, and we're gonna find the opposite end of that, which is this single prong right here, out of our wiring harness. We're gonna hack this off and solder it to our new wire. That way we still keep that connection. I know 90% of you guys are just gonna hack that thing off and butt connector it, but this is probably your ideal way. Got that soldered and shrink tubed to this really handsome piece of cloth covered wire. So this guy, kind of like we talked on the whiteboard over there, is going to run from right here at our regulator, the only connector there. Plug that in. We're gonna just follow down here along the frame rail. One thing you wanna make sure, so we're above the frame rail right here. This is a no-no. Going under the frame rail, now your chance of rubbing there, either putting it on a lift, on a trailer, whatever you're doing, cutting that wire is pretty good. So we wanna keep everything north, tied up kind of to the top of the frame rail. We're gonna run this up the backbone. This will all be inside our oil tank, nice and hidden. We got our circuit breaker here. This is our hot side connected straight to the battery. So we do not want this connected to that side. We want it connected to the other side. So that way it is now fused essentially by that circuit breaker. So if something goes wrong, it'll pop that circuit breaker and not burn things down. We're gonna leave that off because we got more to hook up to that guy. That is what we currently have completed thus far. We're gonna wire in our key switch, our brake switch. For the sake of this, we're just gonna run wires back to where the light is and let you guys worry about that on your own. Same with the headlight. There's a million different ways to skin this cat. Blinkers, no blinkers. Horns, no horn. This is just kind of as simple as you can get it. What we are going to do here, our S wires, our start wire. This gentleman is going to bloop, run up here to our starter solenoid. So when we hit that crank, that start, it's putting power to that starter solenoid. Our B is our battery wire. This guy is gonna jump over here and connect to our circuit breaker side of our power. So this is the power into our key switch. When we hit the starter, this is power out to our starter. So the last one is when you're in the run position, keys on, you're already started. So this guy's gonna go a bunch of different places. The first place it is going to go, boop, is over here to our tail light. So anytime we're running, ignition's on, our tail light is on. Second place it is going to go, boop, is way up here to our headlight. You can put a switch in, you can put a high-low switch in, you can do all sorts of stuff right here. If you want high beam, want low beam, want the option to turn it off, we're gonna wire that thing straight to the high beam. It's on when we run, keep it simple. Third place, this guy. So easiest way we're gonna do this, one more run over here, boop, to our brake switch. What that guy does when we hit, we're just running a rear brake switch. If you wanted a front and a rear, this is kind of multiplying this. But for the sake of this, we're just running a rear brake light switch. We got a power going in when the key is on. Anytime we hit the brake, we're gonna be pushing power out past that switch. Last place is going to be out to our coil, but we're gonna pause on that. We'll come back to that when we worry about the ignition, coil, spark plug wiring. We have this very lovely pre-made wiring harness that has pretty much all these connections made for it, but I'll still talk through in case you don't want to get one of these guys, want to try to do it yourself, but this is just an easy option. We'll be selling this with the circuit breakers, with the circuit breaker mount, kind of a buy it all, follow this, be done situation. One thing to mention, you can run your wiring on the outside of the frame here. Bloop, 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 bloop. We chose to drill a hole up here on the underside of the frame. We left this open here so you can run your wiring up through your backbone, down through there, right to where your ignition and all that stuff's gonna be. Coil's usually mounted up here. We got rid of that mount, cleaned that up a little. That way we don't have a big coil hanging here. We are going to hang our coil underneath here. So this is a new motor mount. It'll have our ignition switch in it. It'll have our coil mount straight to the plugs. Our wires coming straight out of the backbone. That'll keep all that stuff nice and tight instead of some stuff hanging up here. You got stuff over here, ignition there. It keeps it all kind of together. This is a gas box product. We sell it on the website, throttleaddiction.com. First thing we're gonna do is take this lovely harness, snake that through. So with a little fun, we got our wires pulled through there. We're gonna find the B terminal, which is our battery. So for this one, we are using a red wire. because that seems to make sense. Color wire, what you use doesn't really matter, but if you're using our harness, that is the way it will be. All right, red to our B terminal. Now we're gonna follow that through our backbone. So that red wire goes through our backbone, comes out right here, back to the other side of our circuit breaker. This is the guy we put on before. Here is that second wire. Again, it's pretty important you make sure you're putting these on the correct side of the circuit breaker, not the same side as your battery wire. So there we go. We got our wire going from here through the backbone back to the battery of our ignition switch. So second off, we're going to find the S terminal, which is starter, S for start, pretty clever. So on our harness, the S terminal is green. Now we have our B battery, S start, green. Green wire comes through the backbone, runs down here, comes over here to a spade terminal. So this guy, we're going to run very nicely down here. So the green wire connects to our starter exciter wire right here. So we're just gonna run that guy down. And once we get everything kind of in place, we'll come back and zip tie and clean up and all that jazz. And that just plugs in right there. The last terminal here on our ignition we're going to use is the A terminal. After we've started, we're in the run position. Going to run our headlight, going to run our taillight, our brake light switch, as well as some power over to our ignition coil. What we have here in our harness is the blue wire. So that's going to go back to your tail light and your brake light switch. We've got this separate black wire here. That's just going to run up to your tail light. Black matches the frame, incognito, very tricky. And then we have this short little white wire we're just going to stick on for simplicity now. Since we're wiring all this, we'll touch on where this guy goes when we attack the Ultima Ignition. Stack those three on there and connect to our A terminal. What we're left with our harness here is these two connectors, which we're going to go talk about quick. Those will go to our brake light switch, and then these wires that are going to go back to our tail light. We got our ignition all wired in. Got one wire going back, splitting off to the brake switch and our brake light. We got the one going to our headlight, the black one, and then the white one just kind of sitting out here that we're going to touch on later. So now what we're going to do is hook up this brake light switch. So this brake light switch is just a hydraulic one, goes on the rear master cylinder in lieu of your banjo bolt. Pretty little, pretty small. So we're going to take the one wire, blue wire, coming out of our ignition here, and we're just going to plug that guy right into one side of our brake light switch. So that'll be the power side. The other one we're going to take out of the other side of our brake switch, and we're going to run that guy back to our brake light. So what we'll have, we'll turn the key on, power is going to run down to this bulb here, so we'll have a tail light. Power is going to run down to this brake switch. When we hit that brake, it's going to close that switch with an arrow. Run power to our brake light bulb, so two bulbs. For the sake of this, we don't have a tail light. We're not that far. We're still just putzing along here, so we're just going to run these wires long. That's the way the harness will come. If you guys purchase it from us, we just got them run long. That way they kind of stick out there, so when you get all that stuff hooked up, you're good to go. These are the two connectors going to our brake light switch. One is our power in, one is our power back to the bulb, and then we have our two wires here. Black and blue is going to be for our brake light, red and black is going to be for our tail light. So this is the banjo bolt. Just pull out your original banjo bolt, throw this guy in your master cylinder. Obviously you would have brake lines and all sorts of fancy things hooked up at this point. Brake light switch, it just replaces your banjo bolt. It's got 2 wires and in and out, doesn't matter which one's which. So we're going to just connect those guys up. In the real world, you'd put some heat shrink so these things don't arc out together. Once you get them on there, heat shrink that. But for the sake of this, we're just plugging those in. One comes into your power in, the other one's going out. So that would hook up here with that little clamp when you got her. And then from here, these are your 2 wires going to your brake light, tail light situation. Black, red is for tail light, black, blue is for your brake light. So we don't have a fender, we don't have a tail light, we don't have any of that stuff, but those would then run up, preferably inside your fender, up your sissy bar, whatever. So that's your brake light switch, tail light, all that wrapped up there. So now I'm gonna get the coil and the ignition all buttoned up, kind of clean some of this up, and then we're gonna go on to the ignition module is what we're gonna do next. So the last piece of this puzzle is our ignition, coil, spark plugs. Now we can turn everything on, but we can't start shit, so we're not quite there yet. So what that is going to consist of wire-wise, we got 3 wires coming down from our ignition module to our coil. We have our spark plug wires. This is a single fire coil, so they are, doesn't matter which one goes to which. Just a note here is our VOS vacuum switch, which advances our timing. Use it, don't use it, a lot of different opinions out of there. It's probably gonna get you better fuel mileage. It's Chopper, we don't really care. We are not gonna be using that. The violet wire coming off of our ignition module would go to that VOS if you cared to use it. If you do choose to eliminate your VOS like we are doing on this guy, normally your VOS hose is, VOS hose, that's hilarious, plugs into this vacuum port on your carburetor. Since we're eliminating this whole unit, we're gonna have to plug this vacuum port in order to make things run good and happy. Another wire over here is our green wire, which goes to your tack. Again, use it, don't use it, we're not using it. White wire is going to be our center to our positive. And if you recall from earlier, this white wire we attached to our ignition. This bad boy is going to truck along and connect there. The other 2 wires here, our rear spark plug, the wire going to the negative on the rear side is pink. The wire going to our front cylinder on the negative is blue. So 5 wires total. We're cutting this. We're going to be using those 3 wires as well as that 1 wire we installed, and that is going to complete our wiring of our Sportster. Now we are going to make it happen. Pulled this cover off just to get wires in and out, do all that fun stuff. So normally you would maybe do this first. If your timing cover has never been removed, they're riveted on, most likely it has, you can just pull the screws out. But we're gonna pop those rivets out quick, take this connector apart. You guys are gonna cut it, I'm sure. I'm gonna take it apart, I don't know why. We're gonna rip all that old stuff out. We are going to go through this fun stuff. Plug wires, our coil, coil. Very nice, neat, cool. The all-in-one. So this is your timing pickup, your ignition module. It's the whole thing rolled up in this tiny little thing. Don't be scared, there's a lot of switches, a lot of things going on there. We're gonna talk through all of that. It's not scary, it's not intimidating. We're here, we have you. The instructions are great, piece of cake. So we got that guy. This is a fancy nose cone, depending on your year. I can't swear to it. You may or may not need to utilize this to make it work. Timing plate number 1, numero dos, because your local Harley dealer doesn't trust you to play in here. Screaming Eagle, dang. So what you see behind the plate here could look different. The earlier ones had a pickup with your control module up there. Could be Screaming Eagle, could be this, all sorts of different things. But for the sake of this, for the sake of being able to take what we sell you, what we have, watch this video and do it from all years, makes, models, all encompassed, we're gonna pull this thing out. First thing we're going to do is find the center where our pickup is between these two holes. Kind of confusing there, but for example, on this one, you got a hole here, a hole here. The center is just going to be dead center right about there. So that's where our pickup is. This one, hole, dead center is going to be right there where that is. So what we are going to do is take a Sharpie, mark that center, and mark the engine case. I'm not going to use a Sharpie. I'm going to use this and just scratch a little mark in there. So we already scratched the center of our timing. Now we're just going to put a wee little scratch because it's hard to get in there with our Sharpie. But we put a tiny little scratch right there in the case. If you don't have the Screaming Eagle one, you can get in there with a Sharpie. It's pretty easy. Just find the rough center, put a mark there. Piece of cake, nothing too crazy. Get it close. Now we are going to undo our 2 pillar bolts. Now the fun part, we're going to feed these wires up through here while we give her some persuasion. Give it a little help here. Trying not to pull on the module itself. She's out. Don't need that. Put it in the eBay pile. So we talked about the kit real quick, having this little brass plate. If your Sportster does not have that brass plate in there, don't remember the year specifically, but it's the earlier ones. This is notched. Can't mess it up. Take that bolt out, put it in there. This is the replacement to update us to this. Ours already has it. You'll notice just by the color, that's all you need to look at. Ours has it. We're good. So now we are going to take our ignition pickup plate combo situation, unravel that, and as Haynes says, reverse of disassembly. Might want to put a little tape around your wire loom. We're going to try without, see if it works. Nice. Much easier than the disassembly there. With that oriented, with our wires pointing down to the hole, we're going to take our Sharpie now, find the center of this bad boy. This is our pickup here. You can kind of use that for a reference. I actually don't love that. Okay, so we got our center mark. Not that one. That one wasn't perfect. That one, good enough. So we're gonna pull this guy down here, kind of pull in the wires from the bottom while feeding it through until she sits in there, just like so. Open up our Bag O, stands for Bag O Goodies. And we are going to get these started here, kind of until they just seat, and back them out a little. Now this is in here, loosey-goosey. So what we're going to do, pretty simple, find the mark we drew on our Ultima Ignition, find the mark we put in the engine case when we pulled out the old one. We are going to spinny, 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 till those two line up. I doubt you can see it, but trust me, they do. And then we are going to tighten these down, not uber tight, just loose for now. If you had a 97 earlier, rather than have an ignition module and something in here, now we just have something in there. Life is good. So we are going to run this up, 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 usually through the backbone. For the sake of this, we're just going to run it externally so you guys can see what we're dealing with here. We're going to run those through there. Our coil, now that we got this nice relocate, is going to mount right there. Here are 3 terminals that we're going to be hooking all this stuff up to. This one here in the rear is for your rear cylinder, front cylinder. Center here is your positive. That's going to be the white from our ignition module, as well as the white from our ignition switch that we put in earlier. So we're going to throw some terminals on those two. They're going to be our positive. Green is something we don't care about. That is our tack, so we're not worried about that. Violet is for your Vos if you're interested. We are not. We're going to get rid of those. Blue is going to our rear negative. Pink is going to our front negative. So I'm going to trim these up, get some ring terminals put on them, and start installing them. First thing I'm going to do, get rid of the wires we do not need. We will not be using a tack. Green, gone. We will not be using Vos. Purple, gone. So I'm just going to leave those out there. We will get some heat shrink and put over there momentarily. We got all the ends put on our terminals there from our ignition module, as well as the white wire from our ignition switch. So we are going to start putting all these guys on. First one we're going to do, let's see here, is our most difficult, which is the white one. Not that it's difficult, but which way do these guys want to go? Oop. It is the one with 2 wires. So we will throw that on there. All right, white one's done. As our coil sits, front is front. So this guy is our front negative. Front negative is our blue wire, and our rear is our pink wire as it sits on the bike. Now those are tight. We're just going to mount our coil using the factory hardwire. Clean that up. Before we wrap up, we've got the ignition in. We're going to static time that thing real quick. This is the part that scares off a lot of people. We're going to walk you through it. Nothing too crazy here. First thing, we got the rear wheel off the ground. We are going to pull our spark plugs to make it easier to turn over. We are going to, not using vice channel locks, using something better than that. We're going to shift into a high gear. That way we can use the rear wheel to turn the motor over. We don't have to take anything off to get a bar on there. Bounce to the other side. We are going to remove our timing plug. Don't be scared, stick with me. You're doing great, I'm proud of you. One little note here. Remember to put this back in before you start it. I've done it more than once and it will make a gigantic mess of you. So what we need to do now is find top dead center on our front cylinder on the compression stroke. Depending on the model year of your Sportster, that top dead center mark is going to look different. Look in your shop manual. If you don't have one, you should probably buy one. There's also a lot of cheat sheets out there on the internet. Which one is your advanced mark, which one's your top dead center, depending on your model year. So what I'm going to do real quick is get this mark in there where we need it, show you guys that, and then run you through the next step. So what we've just done by removing the plugs, putting it in gear, lifting the tire, we can wiggle our tire, which that does move the motor to get us to top dead center. So as I move the tire, it's moving the engine over. So we're looking for a solid line, which is our top dead center. We're going to keep rotating, and there it is. We're going to get that as close to centered in the hole as we can. We're going to turn our ignition on. We're not going to start it. We're just going to turn it on. And as we turn on, it should blink for a second red, which is what we want. The next thing we're going to do is rotate our points plate. And as it turns red, that means we're timed correctly for that top dead center mark. So we're going to go this way till it turns on, turn it clockwise until that light just turns off. It's very important. So when it just turns off, right there, we're going to snug her down. We've now just set our static timing. You can go further in dynamic timing with it running, but I probably wouldn't. So if we have our timing mark lined up in our timing hole there, and we are turning our points plate all the way from one end to the other, and we can't get our timing light to turn on, that most likely means we're at top dead center on the wrong stroke. So we got to turn our back wheel all the way around till the timing light or timing mark comes back in, and try to rotate it, and then we should be able to get that light to come on, and we can set our timing from there. Before we forget, real quickly, we're going to put our timing plug back in, because you will forget, and you will make a mess, and you will be sad. Easy, easy peasy. The last thing, I know I keep saying that, the last thing is configuring our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 switches. Number one, so first of all, if the switches are up, they are on. So right now they are all on. If they're down, they're off. Number one is for our VOS. Whether you're running VOS or not running VOS, it's going to be off. The only time it's on is in some turbo applications, so I don't think anyone's going to be doing that. Number 2 and 3 are our advanced curve. For what we're doing here, off, off. Number 4 switch, number 5 switch is for our rev limit. For this guy, off, off. Number 6 is for our firing mode, whether it's a dual fire or single fire setup. The coil we just installed with the Ultima kit is a single fire, meaning one cylinder fires then the other. It's not a wasted spark where it fires both at the same time. We are on a single fire, so single fire is on, so that one stays where it is. So offs 1 through 5, on number 6. So when you finish up your timing installation there, don't forget to go to throttleaddiction.com and get your custom derby and points cover. We'll put whatever you want on it. So we're gonna go ahead and throw that guy on there just so it looks cool. One more thing to touch on real quick before we wrap up are grounds. This battery terminal right here is going to, that's your negative. That we just reused the original OEM one that came with our Sportster before we hacked it up. Put that back to the motor mount, all good there. Coming off our headlight and tail lights here. Ground to frame, ground to your headlight, mounting bolt. That way you're not running these wires all the way. That adds a lot of linear feet of wire hanging all over your bike. So just ground those out to the frame or inside your light buckets, whatever's easy to do. Hopefully that helped a few of you guys out that have been asking questions on wiring up your Sportster. They got part numbers, SKUs over here, as well as in the description, and the link to throttleaddiction.com, as well as many other chopper parts and pieces. Keep the comments coming. Let us know if there's anything else, other videos we can help out with. Other than that, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.